Welcome to Lawyers Who Care, the video show podcast that highlights attorneys who go above and beyond for their clients. And on each episode, we will meet a new lawyer and they will share stories of where they went beyond legal counsel for the benefit of their client. My name is Andrew Samelin. I'm the principal of Samelin Wealth, a nationally recognized wealth management firm for lawyers, their firms, and their clients. And let's applaud Lawyers Who Care and learn from them. Today, my guest is Jesse Strauss, and he is a principal at Your Fractional General Counsel. And Jesse practices business law in New York City and has over 2 decades of legal experience. Welcome, Jesse.
Yeah, thank you, Andrew. It's great to be on the show.
So, Jesse, one thing that is super interesting about this is, we have folks that tell us client stories. We have folks that tell us process stories, historical, some are funny. But this is really a very interesting process and kind of a development in the field where your fractional general counsel is a whole new take on the process of engaging counsel to the client needs. Can you share us a little bit, what that looks like?
Sure. Yeah, definitely. So what I'm trying to do, or what we're trying to do here, is we're sort of trying to create a new category of legal services, right? Which is a pretty ambitious thing to do, and it's based on my experience of working, both at law firms. Did 5 years at Big Law, and then having my own little firm, which did project-based work, right? A lot of litigation, a lot of one-offs on transactions, and then actually going in-house with the client and seeing sort of the full scope of what a general counsel does, at a client, at sort of a medium-sized company. And what I realized is that the model that we were using, right, which was basically to hire lawyers on a project basis, was inefficient in some ways, right? And it was inefficient because the lawyer comes in and has very little context for the business and the team and what's actually happening, what the business goals of this particular transaction is. It's sort of you know as much as you need to know to get this done and to move on to the next client. And I really wanted to work with lawyers who really understood the full scope of the business, right? Who understood the business needs, who understood the team, who understood the dynamics. And I wanted to be able to offer that service not as an in-house counsel, but rather as an outsourced legal resource, right? So your fractional general counsel was sort of born of that intersection, right? So I'm not in-house, right? I'm not an employee. You don't have to pay me like an employee, but I really do get to know your business, and I really get to know your team and your business goals. And my goal is to be your go-to lawyer for every matter. If it's something I can handle, I do it myself, and I have a sort of a extensive experience and expansive areas that I'm able to practice myself or people on my team. If I can't, I know the lawyers who can. And what I do is I'll find them and quarterback the matter for you as if I was an in-house counsel. And so, the model is very similar to the model of fractional CMOs, which have become very popular, where obviously if you're a chief marketing officer, you really need to know the product, you need to know the business well, but you're not an employee there, and you probably have a couple different businesses you're working for at any one time. Same thing with a fractional CFO, which is, a very well-defined category of services. And what we're doing here is we're making general counsel legal services into that type of role. So it's really exciting.
And so what has the feedback been with clients? I'd imagine that it's terrific because it's not so episodic in that, a relationship and history gets developed. And you're right, that 360 degree view of knowing about the underlying firm and their history and their staff, I'd have to believe that ends up with a better work product.
Well, I like to think it does, and there's a lot of examples of this in clients, that I work on a daily basis. I have I represent a restaurateur in New York, right? And he has, he has a business, but he's got a lot of different partnerships going on. And, he hired me essentially, to deal with his employment issues because he has a bunch of employment issues, as any restaurateur in New York does, and his leasing issues, right? Because these businesses are very dependent on their real estate assets. And so I've been working with him for, 2 years on this. And then, about a year ago, he had a major partnership dispute. right? And this partnership dispute actually was something I dealt with because I did part of the partnership agreement in this particular restaurant entity. And then it became a lawsuit, right? And so, the model for a lot of lawyers would be the transactional lawyer would sort of say, you need to bring in a litigator in this case, right? And litigation is incredibly expensive. Because it's a litigation in New York, I'm actually handling the litigation, as well as all the transactional work. So I have a background and a basis in understanding all the documents and understanding the business needs and understanding the relationship with the partners, right? And how the litigation plays out over time. And we've had a lot of success with the litigation. I mean, we got most of the plaintiff's claims dismissed for, breach of fiduciary duty and things like that. And now we have our counterclaims, against the defendant that are going to move forward. And in the whole time, we're trying to reach a business resolution. And so, it's that type of integrated service that one sort of lawyer who really understands your business can do that I think really offers a superior work product. The alternative, of course, would have been me on the phone, right, as the transactional lawyer spending a lot of time talking to the litigator, right, about, this is the background of the deal. These are the players. These are the, this is what went wrong and when it went wrong. And that's just inefficient. So as a fractional general counsel, I can handle the full gamut of that. And listen, I have clients who are actually sued in other states where I'm not, qualified to practice because I'm not licensed there. In that case, I do work with local lawyers, but I handle the majority of sort of the drafting and the interaction with the client, which really cuts down on their legal fees from the outside counsel. And so I have, a lot of that happening as well.
And the client feels comfortable because they have a familiar name, Jesse Strauss, at their side, as a
right.
point of continuum throughout their business.
Right. And, and a lot of this is the skills I picked up when I was in-house at two companies, because I was in-house for 7 years at two, medium-sized businesses. And, the role of the general counsel there is in a lot of ways an organizational one. Right, you're keeping track of a lot of outside counts. You're keeping track of a lot of matters. You're keeping track of a lot of deals all at once. And so, that's actually not something a lot of lawyers who are hired on a project basis do. What they're just keeping track of their one project that they're hired for, not missing deadlines, making sure that they're getting back to the opposing counsel on a deal, making sure that they're drafting clauses and going over the different risk factors with the client. So, there's a difference in doing that on a sort of a deal by deal or dispute by dispute basis and doing it for the whole gamut of the company's legal needs, right? And that's something that an in-house counsel, if you're big enough and you really want to have an in-house counsel on staff, totally. And, I'll help you find one if that's the case. I know some really good people who want to work in-house. But if you're not at that size and you don't think you're going to have enough work on a daily basis for an in-house counsel, a fractional general counsel is a great choice for you, because as the work comes in, as the projects mount, your fractional general counsel can handle them. And there might be a point when there's enough work to support a full-time in-house general counsel. Most of my clients, small and medium-sized businesses, don't have one, or actually had one and decided that the fractional model was a better approach for them from a cost standpoint.
So everyone, thanks to my, just so everyone knows, this is Jesse Strauss is my guest, a principal at Your Fractional General Counsel. Jesse, can you provide our audience with your contact information?
Oh, sure. Pretty easy to find. I have a website, yourfractionalgc.com. So it's Your Fractional GC. You could also find me at the official name of my firm, which is Strauss Law PLLC. So I keep that website as well. I'm on LinkedIn under Jesse Strauss. Shouldn't be too hard to find. The only fractional general counsel on there, as Jesse Strauss. There's a lot of lawyers named Jesse Strauss, but I'm the only fractional general counsel. We also have a Substack as well called Fractionally Legal. So I would hope that you'd go to the Substack and take a look at it. It's my thoughts on law and politics and things like that.
Well, law and politics is a topic today that is on everyone's mind for sure.
Very much so. Yeah. One of the things I like about my role as a fractional general counsel and having my own firm and having the independence is that, I don't have influences from other lawyers, right, that I work with, right, who might have conflicts, who might have positional conflicts and things like that. The service that I give is purely to my clients. And that's sort of an interesting model as well. I'm technically a law firm, but I really just a resource for small and medium-sized businesses to get their legal work done, free of any conflicts with other interests for the firm. So I like that a lot, and I think that's particularly relevant in this world.
It most certainly is. And thank you for bringing that to the forefront. Everyone, this has been the Lawyers Who Care video show podcast that highlights attorneys that go above and beyond for their clients. And Jesse's a perfect example of that. If you're an attorney or know one that does go above and beyond, feel free to reach out to us, 914-666-6600, 914-666-6600. Jesse, thank you so much for joining us today.
My pleasure, and thanks for having me.